Hey there, everyone. Ervin here, and today I'm going to be talking about how armor values work in Helldivers 2. Armor has seen many balance adjustments and fixes since the release of the game, as well as had several new findings revealed as to how it all comes together. So, today my goal is to explain to you everything you could ever want to know about the armor system, right down to the formulas and numerical values hiding behind the useless ones provided by the tooltips. Sound good? Great. Let's do it. First, let's talk about the obvious. Your armor value reduces the damage you take, but by how much? The numbers provided are completely arbitrary and only convey that you take less damage with higher armor. Like me, I'm sure you also wanted to know exactly what these useless numbers really mean, so I'll be going through each armor value you have access to in the game, talking about exactly how much damage resistance each part of your body actually receives from it, and while I'm at it, no. Your armor does not deflect hits like the enemy's armor does. It's all just percent damage reduction. Starting with 50 armor, your head receives 200% of the damage that it would otherwise normally receive, which, if that sounds like a lot, it should, because it is. The chest takes 113.1%, and your arms take 93.1%, and your legs take 106.4% damage. So, yes, wearing the lightest armor in the game not only doesn't actually protect you, it amplifies the damage you receive above the normal amount, and your head hitbox is a crit spot with a base damage received of 200%. What about explosions? Explosions have been altered since launch to default all explosive base damage received directly to your overall damage reduction, which is only relevant when explosives are concerned, and also had their ability to damage you several times removed as a result. This means all explosive damage is first filtered through your overall armor value, which is 133% for 50 armor, then cut in half due to our innate explosive resistance baked into all forms of armor. For the ultralight 50 armor suits, this means you will be receiving 66.5% of the total explosive damage. Now, what if you have Vitality Booster? Vitality Booster provides a 20% multiplicative damage reduction that can be applied to our original numbers, resulting in 160% damage to the head, 90.48% damage to your chest, 74.48% to your arms, and 85.12% damage to your legs. For explosives, this works the exact same way with one more multiplicative resistance calculation added in of 20%, meaning our previous 66.5% damage is multiplied by zero point 0.8, leaving us to receive 53.2% explosive damage. As you can see, Vitality Booster makes an absolutely massive difference in the amount of damage our Helldivers receive, in addition to reducing the damage received from Acid and Fatal Bleed Out to 0 due to rounding down a value below 1. If you were on the fence about using this booster, you shouldn't be anymore. For the rest of these armor values, I'll be displaying the percent of damage received with the Vitality Booster next to the original values listed here. Now, I see you wondering, what about the Fortified passive on armor that further reduces explosive damage taken by 50%? Well, this is also a multiplicative improvement to our innate explosive resistance, meaning while a Helldiver without this armor trait reduces all explosive damage by 50% after their armor calculation, an armor set with this trait reduces that damage by 75% instead. In this example, ultralight armor would instead receive 133% damage from the explosion, then reduce it by 75% down to 33.25%. And if we also have the vitality booster on top of this, your explosive damage taken would be further mitigated down to just 26.6%. I'll be also including this trait on our graphics from now on as well as a variant in addition to taking the vitality booster into account. For 64 armor suits such as the CE-07 or the CM-21 Trench Paramedic, you'll be receiving 200% damage to your head, 105.1% damage to the chest, 86.5% damage to the arms, and 98.9% damage to your legs. Explosive damage will then be mitigated down to 61.8%. 70 armor suits, such as the SC-34 Infiltrator, will see you taking 200% damage to your head still, 102% damage to your chest, 84% to your arms, and 96% damage to your legs. Explosives will then deal a total of 60% damage to you. If your armor value is 79, such as the case with the CE67 Titan suit, you'll be receiving 200% damage to the head, again, 96.9% damage to the chest, 79.8% damage to the arms, and 91.2% damage to your legs. Explosives will then deal 57% damage to you. Finally, getting into a medium armor value here at 100 armor, you'll yet again be taking 200% damage still, but we will be seeing this actually change soon, I promise. 85% damage to the chest, 70% damage to the arms, and 80% damage to the legs, with a dead even 50% explosive damage received. Considering all of these values set at nice whole numbers, we can reasonably say that medium armor, as expected, is probably the baseline for all calculations with its 100% overall damage received calculation. Getting into the heavier side of things with the 129 armor B-24 Enforcer suit, we now finally see our head hitbox's damage taken reduced to 177%. Finally receiving some packing peanuts inside our visor for some protection, I see. 75.2% chest damage, 61.9% damage to the arms, and 70.8% damage to the legs. Explosive damage wise, you'll be receiving 44.3% damage at a baseline. 150 armor like the FS-61 Dreadnought or FS-55 Devastator at a stock standard heavy armor value, your head will be receiving 160% damage, 68% damage to the chest, arms 56%, and legs 64%. Explosives will be dealing only 40% of their normal damage against you. And finally, with 200 armor wearing the Marshmallow Man B-27 Fortified Commando suit, you'll be receiving only 134.2% damage to your head, 57% damage to your chest, 47% to the arms, and 53.7% to your legs. Explosives will then be dealing only 33.6% base damage to you. All right, so what are some interesting takeaways from all this data? No matter what armor you wear between 100 and 50, you'll basically always be receiving a very serious amount of damage anytime the enemy manages to land a hit to your head. As many of the enemies in Helldivers 2 more or less aim for this hitbox, you are unlikely to see a remarkable difference in your survivability overall from armor alone between these values, only really starting to see a significant improvement in armor based survivability, turning the corner into that 129 armor suit as it finally begins to receive a small reduction to the damage your head receives. We can also reasonably say that you can expect to take roughly half the damage of a Helldiver wearing 50 armor when wearing 200 armor. Now, is this worth moving as slow as you do? In most cases, outside of eradicate missions and defense missions, I would personally argue no, but my opinions on armor values isn't really what this video is for. Trailblazer for life, baby. Now, taking into account the value of Vitality Booster, as I said initially, there is virtually no reason to not run this booster, especially if you were thinking about giving up your mobility for a higher armor value. A Helldiver with the Vitality Booster and 50 armor will take the same amount of damage to their head as a Helldiver with no booster and 150 armor. Considering how much slower you are in a 150 heavy armor suit compared to a 50 armor suit, or that this would cost you a moderate amount of mobility utilizing a medium armor suit instead, and then expecting to spend a perk slot being taken up by your extra padding, this booster should be a no brainer for any Helldiver, even remotely concerned with their survivability. Take Vitality Booster as a baseline, then feel out how much mobility you are willing to exchange for additional survivability. This should be your immediate takeaway from these numbers. Finally, let's talk about the comparison of running the extra padding perk to running the explosive resistance perk. A Helldiver with 50 armor and the explosive resistance perk Fortified will receive 33.25% of an explosion's initial damage, while a Helldiver with 100 armor thanks to extra padding will receive 50% damage from explosions. This much is true, but it's not really the whole story. Most explosives in Helldivers 2 do not come at you alone. Typically, the projectile that delivers the explosions hurts you significantly as well, especially because this projectile, unlike like the explosion can damage you through your head hitbox, making this comparison far more complicated than you would expect. Rocket Devastators, as a really good example, actually deal majority ballistic damage with their rocket, with 75 of it not being explosive, and only 60 additional explosive damage. Because the explosive resistance bonus only helps us mitigate that explosion, while the additional armor will actually assist in mitigating both, you will always see a better return survivability wise running padding over explosive resistance in almost all situations besides self inflicted detonation. Except when it comes to Terminids, where the acid spray of the Titans and Spewers is actually majority explosive damage. So basically, explosive resistance is a niche for surviving these two enemies specifically, and padding is strictly better in all other cases. But in the case of anything below 200 armor rating, Marshmallow Man suits, you are also best served running Democracy Protects instead of either option if your chief concern is specifically trying to survive a rocket headshot, as these are the only armors below 200 armor rating that have any chance of surviving a rocket to the forehead. If you'd like to see a standalone video breaking down the math that went into coming to this conclusion, though, I'll be more than happy to do so if this video is able to receive 3,000 likes so that I know there's sufficient interest in this topic. Hopefully, this video answered your questions as to what exactly your armor values were doing, and given you some insight into what armor is worth wearing based on the mobility you're willing to sacrifice. Or maybe you're like me and you'll wear whatever you want regardless because fashion divers, and you were just curious about the numbers. If you're looking for even more, though, you can utilize the values I've outlined here in addition to the enemy damage stats on the helldivers.io page, which I'll leave another link to in the description, to actually work out exactly what you will or will not survive a hit from on a limb by limb basis for those of you really looking to deep dive those numbers. Thanks for watching till the end, and have a wonderful day. I'll see you next time.
And now, another helpful tip from General Brash.
Iravin has gone above and beyond with the help of Zeddy to bring us crucial information on what the hell our armor does. For this, I am ordering all active Helldivers to like, comment, and subscribe to his channel. Failure to do so will result in your vitality booster being nerfed.
Brash tactics. Use them or die trying.